Hello, everybody. I am so excited that today we have Riley Brewster, one of our key strategy specialists, and she came to Zang Enterprises from mortgages, and so she's seen quite a lot about what's happening in the real estate market. But today she wants to talk to us about hyperinflation. So first, before we do that, though, I need to ask you why you came to Zang Enterprises and what you hope to accomplish here.
Absolutely. Back in 2020, business was booming, rates were low. I really felt like I was helping people on a daily basis. And it wasn't until probably 2022 when things started to take a turn. So by the end of my mortgage career in 2024, it really got to a point where I just felt like I was no longer helping people and I was doing a disservice. So I knew I had to make a change. And that's when I got the opportunity to come to Zang Enterprises. So I feel so blessed to be here.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Really, she's great.
Anybody
that's worked with you, I always get such glowing statements from people that you've worked with. So that's awesome.
Yep. So now I feel like I truly help people on a daily basis. I feel like, our mission is solid, and I cannot wait to dive into hyperinflation because I feel like it's one of the topics that, we throw around the term a lot, but what is it? How is it going to affect us when it hits? So that's why I picked it today.
Well, then I'm going to just hand it over to you and rock and roll hoochie coo.
All right. So starting with the basics, what is hyperinflation? The technical definition is an extremely rapid, out of control rise in prices in an economy, typically exceeding about 50% month over month. So as that inflation increases, it erodes the country's currency, the value of it. So purchasing power continues to decrease.
So as it decreases, that kind of takes us to, well, here's a Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, $10 trillion that you can't buy anything with. So I think this bill really epitomizes it.
Oh, absolutely.
So what example are you going to use for us today?
Absolutely. So when we're looking at hyperinflation, I feel like oftentimes I hear people say, this could never happen in the United States. This will never happen to us. But in all reality, it's happened many, many times across the world. And this is an article, or I should say some data from Steve Hanke. It was published in 2012. So this isn't even fully updated. It doesn't include Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Sudan, Lebanon, etc. So
Egypt would be on that list as well.
Absolutely. So when people say it never could happen here, I bet you money the people of these countries never thought it could happen to them until it did.
Well, it's true. And especially places like Venezuela that has the largest oil reserves and was once an extraordinarily wealthy country. Zimbabwe, too, was the breadbasket of Africa and an extremely wealthy country. So, yeah, and Steve Hanke is absolutely genius.
Yeah.
So he's shown that there are over 4,800 currencies that have experienced hyperinflation.
Absolutely.
Every single one that was not backed by gold, just government promises.
Yep, exactly right. So when we dive a little bit deeper into this, I really wanted to kind of go through things chronologically just to illustrate how it all unfolded.
Perfect.
So back in 2008 is when they did their first currency reset. And that's when you started paying attention to Venezuela, right?
I actually, I started, but yes, exactly.
Yep. So they were experiencing extremely high levels of inflation long before 2008, but 2008 is when they did their first currency reset and lopped off 3 of the currency zeros. So if you had $1,000 in your bank account, you then had $1 in your bank account.
So you'd go to bed at night, you'd have $1,000 in the morning, you would have 1, and even though we don't know what that reset number is going to be, 1,000 to 1 is pretty typical.
Yeah, absolutely. And on average, within hyperinflationary events, I would say there's roughly 3 currency resets per hyperinflationary event, right? So currency resets, for those of you that don't know, it's the government's way to basically get that inflation or hyperinflation under control. So
or make it look like it's under control.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't really change anything because they don't change behavior. They just lop off zeros and rock and roll again.
And they didn't bring gold and silver back into the monetary system. So
No,
it's
not
another
yet.
point. So next major event then, honestly, I think this is probably the most important event, but the president of Venezuela at the time, Chavez, he decided to repatriate and confiscate the gold. So repatriation is when the Venezuelan government decided to bring home all of the gold that were in foreign banks, largely Bank of England, but he was able to repatriate all the gold, took control of all of the private mining industries, the whole entire gold industry in general, so citizens were no longer able to purchase gold. But you know the one type of gold that they did not touch?
Which one was that?
The numismatic coins. So similar to us in pre-30 or 1933, all of the pre-33 coins were exempt. So
because the wealthy, you know, wealth never disappears, it just shifts location, and when they write the rules, oh, yeah, you think they're going to write them for your benefit? No, you just have to work in the area where they write them for their benefit.
Exactly.
That's why I only buy collectible coins.
Same here. All right, so this chart illustrating the amount of Venezuelan bolivars that it took to purchase 1 ounce of gold. So you can see all the way back to 2013, that's when they did another currency reset. And look what gold did, it shot straight up.
Why is that?
Because with hyperinflation, gold, it keeps up with the rate of inflation. So when they do a currency reset, typically on average, it takes about a 9-month window for that gold and silver to reset as well.
But when they're doing that, because a rising gold price is an indication of a failing
currency
and a looming crisis.
Yes.
So they suppress the gold, and it's kind of like a spring.
Yeah.
If you keep your hand on a spring and you keep it suppressed,
just shoots straight up.
That's what happens. That's what you're looking at.
Exactly.
Twice.
Yeah, and you can
in
see
actually a
2016.
pretty long period of time, not a very long period of time.
Yeah, just 3 years. And 2016, I always like to mention this one because that was the official start of that hyperinflationary event. So they called it officially from 2016 to 2021, but all the way back before 2008, they were seeing early signs of hyperinflation, and that's why the government decided to do that first currency reset in 2008
and nationalize in 2011.
Exactly.
Right. So in there, they saw what was happening, and they didn't want the citizens to protect themselves.
Exactly. They knew what was coming. So. All pretty interesting.
Yeah, they know because they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Right?
So if we go back to 2013 really quick, this was an article that came out. It was illustrating the best performing stock market in the world, which is Venezuela at the time. It was voted the best. So in 2013, I would say it wasn't quite obvious to the public quite yet, and the stock market was doing great because of the inflation. But it wasn't until 2014 when everything crashed and burned, because that's when it really became obvious to the public, and things absolutely fell from there.
Right.
And you can see.
If you look at this chart, what you see is kind of looks similar to where we're not quite there in our stock market, because I believe the melt up has begun, but we haven't really seen that yet. But wow, yeah, they had in 2012, 13, 14, and maybe also 15 and 16. Yeah, they had the best stock market in the world, but what was the value of their currency?
Pretty close to nothing. So here's another article from 2017. Again, Venezuela's stock market's booming, but for all of the wrong reasons. Another article in 2018, Venezuelan stock market's on fire as inflation heads to 1,000,000%. And of course, you know, at the peak of their hyperinflationary event, inflation hit that million and then exceeded it as well.
Right. And so here, you know, people, I mean, this is how they sucker you in. They allow certain assets while they're suppressing gold and silver because they don't want you in them to protect yourself. They allow and encourage stock markets, real estate markets, these other markets to go up in nominal terms, in number terms, so that people are watching that and thinking that's the trend, when the real trend is in that loss of purchasing power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very well explained. So now we are going to fast forward to 2021. So this was when they did the most recent currency reset. I don't want to say the last because they're
We
still
don't
experiencing super high levels of inflation.
Yep.
So honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they did another currency reset. But this shows, again, how many bolivars it took to buy an ounce of gold. This number was so high to the point when they did that currency reset, it looks like it dropped and did nothing, but it couldn't even capture what happened after that. So if you zoom in on the graph, you can see it resets temporarily, but then it immediately starts climbing back up. And that's how it works every single time.
Exactly.
So
people, that's why it's sound money, because it really is. They can manipulate the visible price, but they cannot manipulate the fundamental value.
Absolutely.
It holds your purchasing power intact. Yeah.
And
Very
even
good
when
point.
everything resets, it's never going to have a $0 value like any fiat investment would.
Right. That's the thing. Let the stock market go to the moon. Like this $10 trillion note, 10 trillion times zero is still zero.
Exactly. This is another article headline that I found interesting. So grid failure and hyperinflation leading to bartering in Venezuela. So typically when we think of bartering within the strategy, we're mostly thinking about silver. Obviously we have, barterable gold as well, but I really wanted to illustrate what silver did during that time too.
Good. I think that's great.
So next chart, same thing. How many Venezuelan bolivars did it take to buy a single ounce of silver? It looks similar to the gold graph. Again, shoots up, has that little bit of a plateau, which again, that's where we're going to be executing different parts of the strategy.
So this is 10 years, and if I'm reading those numbers, 1 ounce of silver went up, let's see, that's hundreds, thousands, 300 and almost 391 million %. Wow.
Exactly.
Think it held its purchasing power value?
I think so. So similar thing with this graph as with the gold graph. It looks like it drops off and does nothing, but if you zoom in, same thing. It
Same
resets and immediately starts climbing. So I also wanted to kind of, I guess, give you guys a visual of what life looked like for the Venezuelan people during that time. People were hoarding, they were panicking. This picture here illustrates people basically waiting in line for toilet paper.
Right. Or food, or, and then things are rationed out because look at, you'd spend all day in line for food, which is why in the mantra, you can't live without food.
Very true.
So we need to be more self-sufficient and independent preparing this so you're not standing in that line.
Absolutely. And here's another picture, empty grocery shelves. What does that remind you of?
COVID in 2020.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you think back, I feel like that could have even been like a testing grounds for what would happen in our population. How would people react? We were waiting in line for toilet paper. Sometimes it was weeks on end. And then when they did have it in stock, they were limiting the amount that you were able to purchase per person.
Right.
So everything was rationed and people were panicking. Here's another picture. This is empty shelves at a pharmacy.
Yeah.
Next one, Venezuelans.
Well, can we go back to
Of
that
course.
for just a minute too? Because that's part of, we lump medications and medicines into the food category.
Right.
We will be building and showing people how to build a medicinal garden.
Oh, wonderful.
But isn't that where your gold barter ability comes in?
Absolutely.
If you have like a chronic issue, you want to make sure that you can always afford your medications.
Yeah. And you stock up on what you need as well.
Right.
And that's something we can plan for in the strategy too.
Absolutely.
And then this one says Venezuelans break off flakes of gold to pay for meals and haircuts. They were so desperate, they were chopping off little pieces of gold.
Well, it was that's what was accepted.
Yeah.
Was gold and silver. And I get this a lot from the live questions that I do on Tuesday on that event. And people will say, well, no, how could they do that? But this isn't the first time that we've seen this. That's real money. And you'll notice that's a torn bill that he's using because the bills
They were worth
have
nothing.
no value.
Yeah.
500 million. It had more value as a scoop for the gold flakes or a napkin.
For an empanada.
Right.
As you said before.
Exactly.
Yes.
Gold and silver are sound money. It's also how people survived the sovereign debt crisis in 2014 and 2015. So, when shopkeepers understand that they cannot replace the goods for what they just sold those goods for, they want money that holds its value. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I wanted to throw this in here because I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah.
The new president of Venezuela decided to attempt a repatriation again, starting in 2016, and they have been in back-to-back court battles with the Bank of England ever since. They still, to this day, do not have possession of their gold that's held in the Bank of England. So that just goes to prove our point even further. If you don't hold it, you don't own it.
Exactly. Possession is 9/10 of the law here. And you know what I'm curious about, though I don't think we will ever know? I wonder if that's some of the gold that was sent over here to the U.S., the physical gold, and then delivered out, because most of that gold came from the Bank of England.
Yeah.
And the Bank of England, it's not like they have a lot of their own gold. They don't, but they do hold a lot of other countries' gold. Wow. So what would be interesting to see as we move forward is if other countries are trying to repatriate their gold and how the Bank of England is going to deal with that.
Yeah.
We see how they're dealing with Venezuela asking for their money back. Nope. Nope.
Yeah. It's insane to me. But again, it goes to prove our point even further. You have to hold it. You have to own it.
Yep.
So with all of this being said, what signs should we be on the lookout for? How is this going to affect us? Are we seeing early warning signs? The answer to that is yes, we are. Here's a list of 7 different signs of early hyperinflation, and we are seeing every single one of them. I would say the first 3 are probably the most obvious, which is why I wanted to include some data on it. So all of these charts are from the Federal Reserve Education Department. This first one, illustrating rapid currency devaluation. This one is probably one of our most favorite charts to use because we believe it is probably one of the most transparent pieces of data that the Federal Reserve puts out.
And you can tell the whole story with this one purchasing power chart. You pulled a snippet because it looks like just in those other charts of Venezuela, because that drop was so big. And somebody actually even just asked me that. Well, it looks like it's flattened out. No, it's just the relative size. It's just a huge drop. This is, so this starts from what, 2008?
Yeah, about 2008.
Right? And those gray bars are official
recessions.
So you can see, and even if you looked at it longer, you would see that every time we hit an official recession, the purchasing power declines even more rapidly after that. It's so obvious here.
And even in 2020, you can see it in all 3 of the graphs. So let's look at the next one. Accelerating inflation. This is the consumer price index for all urban consumers chart. So 2020, you see that rapid spike. It starts accelerating at that point forward. And even with the number 3, out of control money printing. This is the M2. So it's not quite all of the money in circulation, but it is a large majority of it. And I mean, it shows us what we need to see. So 2020, even more so. It's even more obvious in this one. It spikes up.
Yeah, but you know what's really interesting about this chart is that pattern shift that we see between 2022 when they rapidly raised the rates, right? And that was deteriorating the money supply.
Exactly.
Right? And then what did they do? They cranked up the printing presses
to pump more money into the system and create more debt.
And we broke that. You can see it's gone a little bit higher than it was when we went down to that dip.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Exactly.
That means a lot more rapid money printing.
Yeah.
And with the passage of the big, beautiful bill, a lot more money printing.
Yeah.
Trillions and trillions of deficit spending.
Yeah, and when the Fed lowers the interest rates, it's just an excuse for them to continue to print more money.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
So with all of that being said, this is why it is so important for us to truly understand what hyperinflation is, how it can affect us, because we are seeing the early warning signs of it, and we need to prepare.
Oh, absolutely. And can you talk a little bit more about, say, the sound money strategy and how you work with clients in that regard?
Absolutely. So the sound money strategy was developed by you to essentially plan for this hyperinflationary event. So the strategy is going to be based on the fundamental values of gold and silver, or what they truly should be worth right now if there wasn't any manipulation in the spot market. So the way we calculate that is by taking the global debt, dividing it by the global mined gold supply, and that's what gives us the fundamental value for gold at about 41,000. And then silver, on average, has been about a 20th of what gold is worth. So that's how we come up with 2,087 for silver. So we go through, we look at your annual expenses. Do you have any debts you want to pay off? Do you have any fiat money investments left in the system that we'd essentially need to look at replacing in case of loss? So all of these things, no matter what happens in the future, having that strategy done and having a game plan in place is really what's just going to give you peace of mind at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And we really do start with your goals first because you need to know what people are trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And my strategy is going to look different than yours. We have different goals. We have different lifestyles. So we really personalize it to each individual to just best suit their needs and their goals.
And I think that you can see that this is not the first time that you and I have talked. So if you're talking to Riley or any of our strategy specialists, you're really talking to me. And so if you need something, if they know how to, you know where I live, don't you?
Absolutely. I'm here right now.
Absolutely. So this has been great. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off for this time?
I don't think so. I think we've covered everything, but thank you so much.
I think you did a great job with this.
Thanks, Lynette.
I mean, you know, you're getting to know who we are as I bring in the different strategy specialists and they talk about whatever topic is near and dear to their heart. I think you picked a really, really, really important topic because you're right. People think, oh, that can never happen here. Even in the face of it happening, because this isn't something we're really waiting for. There will come a point where the public will lose the rest of the itty-bitty bit of confidence they yet have. Because what are they doing?
Giving us hopium.
Yep, they're living on hopium, and that is not a good strategy. Ours is based upon repeatable patterns that have happened 100% of the time. But together, we can make a positive difference in this world. So join us in the Sound Money movement.
Yes.
And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.
Bye.